Hello, how are you? This is Rudy Lozano, broker with PRG Platinum. Thank you for joining us on Zoom as well as live. Uh, just remember that on Mondays we cover CMAs and listings. Taking on the listing has become ever so more important um, because at that time you're not only trying to list the property at fair market value, the suggested price that your comparables support, your sold comparable support. Um, as well as sell value of taking on the listing at 6% compensation. Because remember, you need three people to do intermediary, and in our office, there's approximately 200 agents. So um, a listing agent taking on a property becomes ever so important because you definitely want to use the army of agents in this office, as well as it's not only the agents in our office, but the 14,000 realtors that are part of the San Antonio Board of Realtors. So when you take on a listing, you want to negotiate from a position of strength. Take on a listing for 6, 7, and 8%. The market is very quirky. So what ends up happening is that you're having to take on listings and sometimes you have unrealistic sellers that want to overprice, but then that's the reason that we provide you with a video and scripts and such on Monday on how to price a home um, correctly, pricing your home to sell even in this marketplace. Because there, no doubt about it, guys, there's nothing that the correct price doesn't fix. You being overpriced doesn't help you or your seller. Furthermore, the compensation is already included in the price. In the future, if in a community there's no compensation being offered by a seller, the appraiser will need to make an adjustment downward. So you selling value, selling intermediaries, selling the fact that 200 people might be potentially bring them a qualified buyer from our own office, or that we cooperate with other brokers. It's broker cooperation. The listing agent collects the compensation 6, 7, 8% to be able to share it in a marketing capacity through their own brokerage or power of uh, anybody that's a realtor in San Antonio. So what the listing agent does with their compensation is entirely their prerogative. So do yourself a favor, take on a listing for full compensation so that way every realtor in the city can help you sell your home because you need them. That is the reason why builders are paying 4, 5, and 6 and 7% compensation right now because they want you to bring them um, your qualified buyers. That's the reason you get compensated. You're the procuring cause. So therefore, they want to reward you handsomely. Conversely, when you take on a listing, if you call me and it's been sitting, the first thing that I'll ask you is, have you done an updated CMA? And then I'll ask you to send it to me to make sure that you're doing an apples to apples comparison. And furthermore, I'll always suggest three things: price reduction, for the simple fact that if you've been on market 7, 10, or 30 days, you should right now, especially as the market is somewhat hostile, due to the inflation and rates being high. You should be doing a CMA 7 to 10 every 7 to 10 days. And if there's no walkthroughs, no interest, you should be revisiting with your sellers and advising them that the market continues to reject their price, and therefore you need to reduce the price to the point where you might be able to attract an able, willing buyer. So I will always recommend you reduce the price. You offer to pay concessions because who doesn't need money right now to be able to make the deal happen? Um, People need help with their closing costs as well as their buy down. And that's what the builders are doing. They're paying all of your closing costs, guaranteeing a low rate through buy downs and such. So that way the monthly payment becomes more affordable. Okay. Because for a lot of people, it's not only the money to the table, but what they're going to pay monthly for the next 30 years. And the third thing I will always recommend is pay the buyer's agent a bonus because you want to mirror what's going on in the new home market. So reduce the price, offer to pay additional concessions depending on what their financing program is, whether it's FHA, VA, USDA, and conventional, as well as always offer to pay a bonus. You know, there's no incentive like the financial one. So you paying top dollar um, to the whoever's bringing you a willing, able buyer or a highly qualified buyer. Pay them. Don't lower the compensation. On the contrary, increase it. Um, so um, if somebody's bringing you a buyer or you are the buyer's agent yourself and you're delivering your buyer to a listing, because let's get into the compensation now. Um, there are two compensation agreements that will be required to be used. You really need to start using them now. There's a lot of people that are going to wait till August 17th. That is not what you want to do. You want to already be practicing your scripts, getting your dialogues in place, overcoming objections, problem solving, and selling value. Right now uh, is the perfect time for you guys to prepare, so that way you seize the opportunity, to do well in this marketplace. So there is a short form buyer's representation agreement. It's only one page, and it is to be used for short-term um, arrangements or relationships. Right? If you met somebody at an open house and you're required to provide this form. It's easier for you to give them a one-page form and say, hey, I'm required to give you the information about brokerage services. I'm required to provide you with the buyer's agent um, agreement because no doubt about it, I don't represent the seller. If we leave our open house and I'm going to show you 3 or 5 other homes, whether they be the existing or the new home market, I'm needing to clearly outline that I represent you. My fiduciary duties are to you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to negotiate for you. I'm going to try to get you the best deal possible. But I'm needing for you to know that I represent you. I don't represent the seller. So I really need for you to sign this short form agreement. It's only for 2 days, for a week, or for 10 days, however long you want it to be. Um, and then, of course, you want to outline that you will be providing full services. I do not recommend that you elect showing services because the moment that you establish a relationship with you charging $50 per house and per viewing, once you try to switch, once it becomes where you're showing 10 and 15 and 20 homes, or you go to 4 or 5 different builders, it does really need to start as a percentage and end as a percentage. People that check off showing service will find themselves being discarded very quickly because you will not be given the opportunity to add value. They will not see the million things that you have to complete on their transaction. They probably will change gears and transition to somebody that discloses full services from beginning to end. Okay, so full services means, of course, taking them on as a client, but furthermore, exposing them to the existing, the foreclosure market, as well as the new home market. You don't know if your journey's gonna take you 1 day, 30 days, 6 months, or 2 years should they decide to build in the middle of nowhere where you're having to do, um, you know, a lot of research on unimproved land or whatever. So my recommendation is always negotiate percentage, offering full services. It could be for a short period of time. And then once you decide to work together, you can go from the short form into the long form. So there is a one-page short form where that comes into play when you just met them. You met him at an open house, you met him at a coffee shop, you met him somewhere, and they want you to show them properties for the next 2, 3, 4 days. But it does outline the major things. It outlines, where you're uh, going to be showing them properties at, right, in Bear County and the surrounding areas, that you're going to offer full services, the term for a day, for a week, for a month, as well as I highly suggest a percentage, which you could put 3 or 4%, or up to 3% or 4%. It could always be revised. Um, and then, of course, you always want an intermediary to be checked out, because if they walked into your open house, you're doing an open house for an agent in this office. Well, then, we have over 200 listings. That allows you the opportunity to expose them to the other inventory. Because if they choose not to do intermediary, well, you can't expose them to the rest of our. If they choose not to do intermediary, you cannot expose them to the rest of our inventory, which is not good for them, as well as not good for our brokerage as well. Should always check off intermediary. So let's say you decide to hit it off, and you become good friends, or establish a good working business relationship. Then you want to actually um, go from the short form, where you work for a day or two or a week, and then transition into the long form the moment you submit an offer. And at that moment, it has more information that you want to share with them. So your period needs to be longer. Once again, your broker fees need to be 3 or 4%, depending on what you charge individually. Because no doubt about it, guys, we have agents in this office that have been charging for years 4% plus our transaction fee. They charge retainer fees, consulting fees, because once again, investors, as well as people pondering in commercial or farm and ranch, can take up a lot of your time. So you collecting a consulting fee, or a retainer fee, um, certainly is encouraged. Furthermore, if you end up going into the new construction, you want to, uh, on paragraph 7E, additional compensation, it mentions construction. Paragraph 7E on the long form. Okay, so there's a short form for like open houses, and then you want to transition to the long form. Because then it solidifies the fact that they like you, you like them, you're going to work together, as well as it furthermore can expand on the compensation piece up to 3 or 4%, as well as if you do new construction, which could be outlined in 7E, up to 7% of the sales price, or up to 8%. And why 8%? 8% is the maximum allowable compensation that Housing and Urban Development has authorized on any trade transaction. That means A paper products, FHA, VA, USDA, and A paper conventional, Fannie and Freddie Mae products. 8% compensation can be paid total, whether it's to one agent or two agents. So, like I said, right now, DR Horton has salespeople. They're paid as employees or commissioned salespeople, but because they exclusively work for the builder, their compensation is not included in the 8%. So that's the reason you're seeing all this texting, updated inventory, Facebook posts from the builders stating 7% compensation. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's existing foreclosure market, or the new home market. The maximum compensation that can be paid when a buyer is going through FHA, VA, USDA, and A paper conventional is 8%. So therefore, on a new construction, you don't know if you're going to be um, um, working with them for 30 days on an inventory home, or do a dirt sale at a track home builder, maybe 4 months, 6 months, or you have to go look for vacant land, and then there might not be any utilities, there might not be a running water, so you need a well, there might not be public sewer, so you need a septic system. So once again, a lot of due diligence needs to be made, um, a lot of additional work, and then you haven't even started to interview custom home builders. That could take you 18 or 24 months from beginning to end. So you stating on there that in new construction, it could potentially be up to 8%, um, covers you. I recommend that you do use that language, because in the event that one of the builders only offers 4 and you put up to 8%, it is your business decision. At that moment, you can tell them, you don't have to worry about it. The builder's paying 4, I'm going to take 4. But then you don't have to use an amendment where then all of a sudden they're renegotiating the compensation with you. Because trust me, guys, I've had people work with people for 18 months. They canceled 3 other contracts. It was nothing wrong with the house. They just got buyer's remorse. They make you do all of this work. And then all of a sudden, on the third or the fourth house, they end up closing. And then you're charging them a retainer fee or additional compensation. I had a lady here in the last 60 days where her agent got her under contract on 2 existing properties. And then here was the new home property. She signed an updated buyer's representation agreement and sat down with the buyer. The buyer said, well, I didn't know that that money was going to come from my pocket. According to the agent, she sat down with him. I did my job. We went under contract on 2 other properties. You voluntarily decided to cancel them. I did all that work on those other 2 properties. I'm going to charge you an additional point plus our $500 transaction fee. The builder was only paying 3%, but on the settlement statement, it said 4 plus the $500 transaction fee. So she was upset, but there was an updated buyer's representation agreement where it was explained to her that she didn't like the monies the day of closing. Well, you know, she made her realtor do a lot of work. Anyways, so if for whatever the reason the compensation from the builder ends up being less, it's okay. I'd rather you negotiate from a position of strength and decide to not charge that 8% and take whatever you're being given, 4, 5, and 6%, rather than you try to collect if you're okay just receiving less. Okay. But that's a decision that you as an agent will need to make on that specific client. Okay. Take the compensation on a case by case basis. Once again, it mentions intermediary here. Very important that you check off intermediary, as well as the other thing that I want to cover with you guys is in special provisions in 17, you can write up, especially when it's somebody from out of the country or out of state, okay, and you want a commitment. Hey, Mr. Buyer from Argentina or from Mexico or from the other side of the world, or Mr. Investor, hey, I'm going to charge you a $1,500 retainer fee or a $2,500 retainer fee. I mean, you're going to buy a $300,000 home or $1 million home. So you pay me a retainer fee of $2,500 is nothing. You're going to pay it up front for my time. And then if you close, I will give you a credit for it at the table. However, if you buy nothing, if you do nothing, I get to keep that $1,500 retainer fee or that $2,500 retainer fee because I serviced you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I put aside other clients as well as my own personal commitments to service you and your family. So if they don't want to pay the retainer fee, they might not act. Maybe what they're looking for is a glorified tour guide of the city of San Antonio. Realtors are the first ones to go, oh, I'll show you the city and not charge you. They won't even charge for their time, much less their gasoline, still offer to pay for meals. Don't do that. This is a business. You're not a nonprofit organization. You don't work for the city of San Antonio tour guide department. Okay. If they want a guide, they can go down to the Riverwalk and get on that little trolley boat. I think it's 20 or $25. But don't get them in your car and show them the city of San Antonio without you collecting a retainer fee. Because like I said, you're not some glorified tour guide. Okay. So you may collect retainer fees. You can collect consulting fees. Okay. To walk them through a transaction from beginning to end or some additional compensation that you need to collect. Okay. Because I've had people select the land, select the builder, and then at the end decide that they do want representation but those contracts have already been written. This is the contract that you would write up. This is your employment contract on the buying side, because obviously you can't use an exclusive right to list. That is the employment contract on the selling side. So once again, if you're going to work as a consultant, okay, collect your retainer fees or your compensation through the right forms because it's a requirement through TREC. Okay. And furthermore, you cannot collect monies that a client didn't agree to. Your buyer's representation cannot say three and you collect five from the builder, or if a seller's paying five, you would need to amend your compensation agreement, which is what I am discouraging. There is an amendment to buyer tenant representation agreement, which is form TXR 1505. I would discourage you from using the amendment. It all really needs to be outlined up front. Furthermore, one of the things that we're doing is we're changing how things are being done, guys, because who is driving the closing disclosure is the lender. It's not even the title company anymore. So what we're going to start doing effective August 1st is when you submit your offer, your buyer's representation agreement must already be executed on how much the compensation the buyers agreed to pay, or from what source you ended up collecting it from. Because remember, the compensation can be collected from four buckets: from the seller, from the builder, from closing costs or concessions, as well as the buyer, the difference of the compensation from the buyer. So if a seller's offering two, but you're collecting four plus your transaction fee, we need to get you your CDA. If you turn in your contract within 10 days of you going under contract, you will have a CDA as soon as humanly possible that mirrors your paperwork. We will deliver it to you, and then you bless it, and then we will deliver it to title, and then you will need to input into our system who the mortgage loan officer is and their team, because who's driving the closing disclosure is the lender. If you're going to get additional compensation from the buyer, the lender needs to know about it. Your loan officer needs to know about it. The processing team needs to know about it, as well as underwriting. So everybody needs to be in the know, not just the title company and not just our compliance department. So once again, it will be the responsibility of the buyer's agent to deliver the CDA to their respective mortgage company and their team, as well as the title company, to ensure there's not a breakdown in communication of where the money was supposed to get allocated. Because like I said, if you did a magnificent job and collected $10,000 in closing costs, you need to tell the escrow officer, hey, the seller was only paying 2% on a $600,000 home. He was only paying two. So I need $2,000 plus another $1,000 in a transaction fee that needs to go back to me from the $10,000 I negotiated. So our CDA needs to match how you negotiated, but the loan officer needs to know about it, because then when he's disclosing numbers, hey, I only can use 7,000 of it because the other three belongs. You're going to pay your realtor, right? So no doubt about it, there needs to be more communication. So please turn in your packages, turn in your short form or long form compensation, as well as the amendment to the buyer tenant representation agreement if there are any changes. Okay, because you do not want to be changing your CDA within 10 days of closing. Because if you've been under contract for 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, if there's any changes, you know, it could create chaos on the lending side for your buyer. Okay, so um, please let us know. It will take some adjustment, but ultimately, like I said, the buyer's agent will be responsible to ensure that your paperwork and your CDA match, and you must deliver it to title, and you must deliver it to your mortgage loan officer. Okay. The compensation has to be confirmed. There's talk about the compensation no longer being on MLS. That is one of the key points that was part of this NAR settlement. It's supposed to come off by August 17th. I'm really hoping it doesn't, because many boards are challenging it nationwide, stating, "Well, if I already have the listing on on MLS, we're already offering to pay closing costs and buy downs. We're already throwing in the washer, dryer, refrigerator. Why can't we offer the compensation? Because that's where you put compensation plus a bonus. Because then what that's going to force is that it's going to force the brokerage and the agent to have it on the company website rather than on the website where where the inventory is already being shared. It's one of the points from the settlement that I completely disagree with, and it needs to be challenged because we have all this technology. Why would you want the agent responsible for that, or the listing brokerage responsible for it? Because then all of a sudden there are some brokers that at the last minute, at the last second, can decide to change the compensation. And who's going to step in to play police there and say, no, well, I saw it. It said 3%. And then all of a sudden you changed it to 2, right? It's going to turn into um, a lot of drama. So very important that you use the correct form when you submit your offer. Before submitting your offer, make sure that you send over the compensation agreement between brokers. Hey, I'm going to go show your listing, but I'm needing to find out what your compensation is going to be. It's going to be 3% or it's going to be 4%. Okay, well, can you sign this form confirming what the compensation is? Because I don't want to deliver my buyer and then all of a sudden you tell me it's 0 or 1% or $1. You want to confirm the compensation. There is a written form that an agent's going to be able to use to be able to confirm the compensation before you walk the property. Compensation agreement between the brokers. It's TXR TXR 2402, and it's actually part of your package. It's compensation agreement between brokers. Okay. Furthermore, there's also like a for sale by owner, like a for sale by owner as well. There is a form between the broker and the owner. So if somebody tells you, "Hey, Diane, there's a property that I drove by and it's a for sale by owner," well, tell them that you'll need to do some due diligence, find out if it's priced correctly. Tell them that you'll reach out to the agent and try to pre-negotiate everything for them. That's one of your fiduciary duties, or one of the things that you will do as part of your client relationship. But then certainly you want the for sale by owner to sign agreement between um, the agreement between the broker and the owner. Okay, where the broker or the agent confirms the compensation with a for sale by owner or with an investor. Okay, so there's an agreement amongst brokers, which I'm really hoping everybody's going to be honest, and then there's an agreement between a broker and a for sale by owner and an investor that doesn't have it on MLS. Okay, um, so the other thing I wanted to cover is the fact that it's a team effort, guys. The market's challenging right now. We all need one another. And like I said, if you're the listing agent, I want my people from PRG Platinum to take the high road. Because if an agent from a different office doesn't know how to fill out the paperwork correctly, don't kick them in the ribs, because they're bringing in a highly qualified candidate. Take him under your wing, show him how to fill out the contract. Hey, you missed this, you missed that. I'm gonna take care of it for you, or have that discussion with them, make the revisions, get it over to them. If the revisions keep on going back and forth a second or third time, you might want to just finish out the transaction. What they're bringing to the table, guys, is that they have an able, willing buyer. And if you verify that they're highly qualified or they're paying cash, you know, take the time and help them. Don't kick them in the ribs. And we all started as a new agent at some time. And I don't want anybody here, at least with our firm, to um, not be a friend or not be a buddy. It's just not what we want to do. You'd be doing your seller a horrible injustice, not upholding your fiduciary duty, if you take this horrible attitude saying, well, I can't pay you if you don't fill out the paperwork correctly. Well, no, they're being paid because they're delivering a highly qualified buyer. They're going to be doing you a favor. Because what happens if that agent doesn't know what they're doing, you help them, you get the transaction past the finish line, everybody gets compensated, everybody gets what they want, but then your seller went on and bought another property because you have two transactions if you're the listing agent, right? So once again, choose your battles carefully. Once again, everybody's stressed out. Don't take a negative attitude. If they need help, help them. And if you want to encourage them to, join us on our training, I'll be more than happy to, get them through that learning curve. Once again, um, just try to help people. It just boils down to that. Okay, so um, covered the compensation, negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. Make sure that you know your worth, make sure that you know your value. Uh, so there is a short form for open houses. There is a long form when you've decided to work for them for the duration, for usually 4 to 6 months, maybe 2 years if it's new construction or a high dollar custom home. There's an amendment should the compensation change. But like I said, be very strategic on how you fill out those blanks. There's retainer fees that you can charge. There's consulting fees that you can charge, whether at the beginning or at the end of the transaction. Just make sure that you guys know that a buyer cannot pay you for if it's not in writing. Because remember, guys, for a contract or an agreement to be valid in the state of Texas, it must be in writing. And please don't just DocuSign something over and surprise them at the table. Have the discussions with them. Because if they say they didn't know about it, we have to take them at full value. And then if their lender didn't know about it, that wasn't disclosed. I mean, there's ways that you can do to help us. Because I'm taking the time to get you guys coach and train and trying to get you through the learning curve. But if you don't disclose it to your client, you all of a sudden send a DocuSign the day of closing, that blows up at the table. The lender doesn't know about it. The underwriter says no. It would have to go back into underwriting, and I need 3 or 4 more days. That can't happen to you guys. You're going to have to make a decision at that moment that that fee does need to come off the settlement statement or that closing disclosure. So once again, have those discussions about compensation with your clients, or do up to 4%, up to 8%, which is the maximum allowable by HUD on a trade transaction, FHA, VA, USDA, conventional. If you have any questions, please reach out to either myself or Mr. Clint, but please turn in your packages starting August 1st with your entire package so that way we can review your quality of work before these rules take effect. Okay. Anybody have any questions? You're good? Okay. Anybody online have any questions? We're good? Alrighty, guys. Have a wonderful day. I do want to let you know that I'll be on vacation next week. We are going to have the finance class tomorrow. I will be doing an intermediary class between 12 and 12:30. Intermediary is very important to this office um, because we have a lot of agents and we have a lot of listings. And it's all about exposing your clients to the inventory and so that way you make it a win-win for everybody. So, but I will be on vacation next week, but we have a jam-packed full week of coaching and training, social media, lead generation. There's a mastermind class. There's an abundance of things going on next week. So, um, remember this. And in closing, remember, guys, is that preparation, when preparation and opportunity meet, that creates an environment for success. Okay. So, thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon. We'll see you tomorrow.